video we're going to talk about using the earth, particularly around settlements. So we want to think about how much of the earth people are using and how much of the favorable land or arable land people are on. So there are 7 billion plus people living on the earth, and if we divide up the earth's surface, that's about 1.4 hectares or 3 acres of land per person. Now that might seem like a lot, but you think about that is to meet all of your basic needs for your entire life. And it's not that large, and it continues to get smaller as our population increases. When we're studying settlement, we're studying the distribution, the connections, and the relationships. So the distribution is where people live around the world and why they choose to live there. Connections are those connections to natural resources, and relationships, that sharing of goods, ideas, and people between settlements. When we're looking at settlement patterns, we want to think about sort of that bird's eye view. Ever been in a plane and you're looking down as you're about to land? You get a sense of the size of a settlement. How big is it? How much area does it take up in a country? The density, how many people live in that area? The function and purpose, so why is it that they live there, and how have they arranged themselves? Now these things are generally connected to economy and what industry is propelling this settlement. So if we think about farming versus fishing. So a fishing community, their arrangement might be linear to spread out along the edge of the water, so they have access to the water for their job and to feed their families. Whereas farming, they're going to spread out around a settlement because their farms are going to be in between. If we think about a diversified settlement, this is a settlement where there are many different opportunities for wealth. There are many different functions or purposes of the community. So our community would be a diversified community. Everyone is not going to the same industry, is not traveling along the same path to get there. They're going different routes, forms of transportation to get to different places to meet their basic needs. So here's an example of different patterns of settlement. So we've been talking about linear, and you can see that it almost forms like a line. It could be along a river, most often. It forms in that linear pattern. Then there's a scattered pattern, where you would have people sort of spread out within a settlement. And then you have clustered. And so the cluster, so here we have maybe a major throughway or a highway with an off-ramp and some side roads here. And so these people are clustered because they have access to this throughway, and that will take them to where they need to go. So here's an example of patterns in settlement. And again, the changes in settlement pattern is usually related to industry and sources of wealth. So we've heard about terms like urban and rural. So urban communities, you would have generally a smaller sized settlement with a large density. So you have a large number of people using a large number of resources in a small area, and they're creating a lot of waste. In a rural neighborhood, you might have that scattered sort of settlement where you have people spread out over a larger settlement with fewer people. However, the resources need to get out there, so you need to have transportation and access, and being able to share those goods and ideas between settlements is a little bit trickier. So when we're looking at a settlement, we consider the site and the situation. So site is the physical features. Is it near rivers? Is it in valleys? Is it close to an ocean? So where has the settlement taken place? And the situation. So how is the settlement in relation to sort of human features and factors? So things like transportation. So if we think about the clustered, they cluster close to that major highway so they can get to where they need to. That intercommunity, that connection to other neighborhoods. So, if you live in one area but you work somewhere else, how are you going to settle yourself so you can meet those needs? And resources. How are they connected to farms, minerals, forests? Often those settlements that are closer to those natural resources do better.